logical difficulties lie in the fact that they had no definition of number. And this was, of course, so you go around in circles. That's why they like circles. Okay. Now, I can explain to you unfortunately, I rushed out of the house and it didn't take my slides, and I feel very sad about that because I have some nice slides. The history of the circle actually goes back to the earliest days of written literature. In fact, the circle appears in the first mathematical problem ever to exist in writing, and that is, it comes to us in the Iliad. And the Iliad, remember, tells us the story of the destruction of Troy by Agamemnon and his horse trick, and the eventual catastrophe that happens. And Aeneas escapes from Troy. Aeneas is, in the Iliad is mentioned in the travels of Aeneas. And Aeneas lands in Carthage, where he meets a great princess, Princess Dido. Now, the Iliad tells us the story about the founding of Carthage. Remember, Carthage was later to become the economic competitor to Rome in the Mediterranean, and the reason for the wars that eventually destroyed Archimedes' life. Okay. So, from the Iliad, we know that there's this princess, a Phoenician princess from the city of Tyre, which is also now part of Lebanon. She fled her land by ship when her father, King Pygmalion, was murdered by her ruthless brother. Dido arrived in Africa about 900 BC at the place where at a place which later became Carthage. She tried to buy the land from the local ruler, King Jarvis of Numidia, so that she and her people could settle and establish a new homeland. This is in the Iliad. It could be that Dido was thrifty or that Jarvis did not want any new settlements in his country. They concluded the bargain under the condition that the queen would obtain only as much land as she could enclose by the skin of an ox. So, Dido made most of the situation. She interpreted the word enclose as broadly as possible. She and her people cut the hide in thin strips and tied them together to form a closed cord of great length. This length might have been between 1,000 and 2,000 yards, if we assume that the width of the strips was as small as a tenth of an inch. Okay, now Dido then she cuts this hide, it's a tenth of an inch, and it could be between 1,000 and 2,000 yards. So then she has to solve a problem. Obviously, you want to enclose as much land as you possibly can. And so she obviously had to think about area. And in fact, the Iliad tells us that she got the solution. That if you take a string and you ask, what is the region of maximal area you can enclose by a string of fixed length, it turns out to be what? A circle. Now, it's interesting, and I think this is the part of a takeoff point for Wu. Remember, Professor Wu got very involved, many of you know, in math education. And what outraged him was that he saw this problem in some set of problems for 7th or 8th graders. The fact that the circle is the region of maximal area enclosed by a given length, fixed length, is a very, very difficult problem of mathematics to solve. It actually wasn't solved until the middle of the 19th century. And even the first solutions, attempted solutions, had gaps in it. And really careful and accurate proofs were not given until the, I would say, latter part of the 19th century. And now in this problem, to 7th graders, as I recall, and as Wu showed me, of why he was so stunned, it said that it suggests that you intuitively arrive at the answer, and there are many possible answers. Well, in fact, it's a mathematical theorem that there aren't many possible answers. There's only one, which is the circle. Now, Dito arrived at this answer, so therefore you can say that the first mathematical result ever arrived at in literature, although the proof was incomplete, you could say, was really achieved by a woman. And you can call Dito maybe the first mathematician ever. So this is a very, very subtle problem. Now, actually, Dito didn't really want this. What she did, obviously, she wanted access to the sea. And so if you go to the sea and you require that one end of the rope be on the sea and the other end of your rope be on the sea, then the maximal area requiring that the two endpoints be on the beach would be a semicircle. And that's also has to, that actually follows from this. So that's the legendary story of Princess Dito. Dito, Princess Dito. Now, the story of Dito, it goes further. Why are we told the story of the founding of Carthage by Homer in his Iliad? We're told the story because Dito arrives in Carthage, Aeneas, who escapes from Troy after destruction by Agamemnon and his Greek troops. He arrives in Carthage. Dito falls in love with him. But after a certain period, the gods call him, and we're told he's called to another mission, presumably the founding of the city of Rome. So the later economic competitor of Carthage, a millennium later, or almost a millennium later, really was based on a love story between two people and that broken love. And we learn from the Iliad that in desperation, Dito killed herself. Now, many people have been very, overwhelmed or oppressed or affected by the story. Henry Purcell wrote an opera called Dito and Aeneas. There are many mosaics throughout Europe that depict the paintings, the story of Dito and Aeneas. And even Dante, in the 13th century, wrote about the story of Dito. And I just read this for you. This is the last cultural thing I'll do before we get into the details of mathematical computation. So now I'm reading Dante from his Inferno. Dante in the Inferno condemned Dito to the second circle of hell. And this is the fate of Dito as told to us by Dante. Now I begin to hear the sad notes of pain. Now I have come to where loud cries beat upon my ears. I have reached a place mute of all life, which roars like the sea in a tempest when beaten by conflicting winds. The infernal storm which never stops drives the spirits in its blast. Whirling and beating, it torments them. When they come in front of the landslide, they utter laments and moans and shrieks. They curse the divine power. I learned that to such a torment carnal sinners are condemned, who subject their reason to desire. And as starlings are borne by their wings in the cold season, in a broad and dense flock, so the blast carries the evil spirits. Here, there, up and down, it blows them around. No hope ever comforts them, God, or of rest, or even of less pain. I asked, Master, who are these people whom the black air so punishes? The first of whom, about you want to know, he said to me, was an empress over